Hi, welcome to my podcast. My name is Ayirebuah, and this is Ayirebuah Speaks Literally, a podcast about the random things, random thoughts that shape my personality. Today's random thoughts. Well, actually, today's thoughts aren't exactly random. A friend, Vanessa Vanderpoy, approached me and said that her friend had written a devotional. What type of devotional is this? It's a devotional about how to help sexual abuse survivors step out of any kind of shame they may be feeling. This is a devotional that, in her words, will help a fellow or another person. And I hope that this episode heals somebody. If you've ever been through it, I'm very sorry that you had to go through it. You can access the devotional at nakwama.com, and there are more details in the episode. So I speak to Irene Afriyie Boafo, the author of Out of the Silence devotional, virtually, and she tells me about the inspiration behind the devotional and a lot more in the episode. So please stay tuned. Don't move. Okay, you can move a bit, just shimmy a little, and let's get into the episode. Thank you for joining me. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome to Ayirebuah Speaks Literally. Today's episode we have with Irene Afriyie Boafo, who is a writer, a blogger, and a student pharmacist. Today's episode, we call it Out of the Silence, and it is about Irene's devotional for sexual abuse survivors. Irene, you're very welcome to the show.
Thank you.
How are you doing today?
I'm okay. And you?
I'm very fine. So before we start the whole conversation about the devotional and everything, just tell me and your audience, because you're quite very fresh on this show. So tell me 3 interesting things about yourself. First of all, I can see that people call you Rennie, because I think that's a play
Yeah.
on your name. So tell me a bit. There's 3 interesting things about yourself.
Well, I love food and I love to write and I love to sleep.
Same. It's like we're twins. I do a lot of sleeping in my free time.
Very necessary.
Yes. So I got like a message from a mutual friend of ours, that's Vanessa Vanderpoy, who mentioned that you've written a devotional and she would like me to host you on either my podcast or IG Live. So I was saying that we're going straight into the episode, and we're going to start with the reason or inspiration behind your devotional.
Okay. So as I've written in my book, I'm also a survivor and a Christian. And
Okay.
it's hard coming by Christian literature that talks about sexual trauma. It's almost like it's an unspoken topic in the church. So I decided to do something for people like me that I didn't have when I was going through my journey. So that's what inspired the devotional.
Right.
Well, I've had multiple experiences, so I wouldn't even know what to share, but somewhere when I was as young as 6 and growing up as a teenager and even as an adult. So and these experiences have affected my life in so many ways. In some of the ways I'm now realizing. So I I just wanted to use my own experience and what I've learned so far to encourage someone and give them hope. And I mean, it's a very lonely place to be. So knowing that there's someone just like you and having some words of encouragement, especially if you're a Christian and you want some kind of biblical perspective, then
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay. So, all right. So, tell me about the things you wrote in the book. What are some of the things that a sexual abuse survivor would find in your book that would be helpful? Just like a few things.
Okay, so first of all, the book is a devotional, so the format is like any other traditional devotional. It has a space for um there's a passage, a Bible passage for it for every day. It's a 5 day devotional, and then
Mm,
there's a little how do I call it, a little write up about the passage and what I'm trying to put across. And then there's space for you to write your reflections, and then there's a
mhm.
prayer. Yes,
Okay.
so um, some of the contents include um, talks about shame and why it's not your fault.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then getting help, and then your identity in Christ and how God sees you after the abuse.
Mhm. So,
How
how do you sorry to cut you off, but how do you explain how God sees a person after the abuse?
well, I wrote in my book that you may not feel it, but you are still you are still the temple of God. Um,
Mhm.
the Bible makes us understand that our bodies are the temple of God, and just because someone did something bad to it doesn't change the fact. Because one thing that sexual abuse brings to the survivor is a lot of shame, and a lot of it
Mhm.
is also centered around your body, and you might feel dirty or um impure, or however you might want to call it. But then um knowing that it doesn't change how God sees you, and you're still his temple.
Mhm.
It's I write it in one of the days. I think the last but one day,
Mhm.
to give you a perspective on how God still sees you. Because if you can understand how God still sees you and begin to believe that, then you begin to start a journey from walking away from shame. Because shame is like a really big thing when it comes to sexual abuse, and it doesn't just affect you in terms of your sexuality, it affects everything about you, and in
Mhm.
even other areas of your life that you didn't know that it could affect you. You realize that it kind of cuts across. So realizing that um God does not see you as a shameful thing or as incomplete or impure, it kind of takes some of the for survivors. Sometimes there's a lot of victim shaming as well, and
Yeah.
we are always trying to find loopholes to what the victim did that
Mhm.
resulted in what they went through. So finding that perspective, I think, kind of lifts up the weight a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I find that part of this whole the whole sexual abuse thing quite unsettling, especially when they go ahead and ask, like what was going through your head? What did you think was going to happen? All those things. It
Yeah,
it really doesn't sit well at all, and you think that even after calling it out and saying that it's not the victim's fault, it's the offender's fault, blah blah blah, but even to this day, it still happens, it still continues, and it's very sad.
yeah,
Mm,
yeah.
yeah, okay. All right. So I spoke to you a couple of days ago and you mentioned that you wanted the devotional to be something simple and an easy read. So how did you achieve that?
Well, first of all, it's very short. It's just 5 days, so it's
Mm-hmm.
not a really lengthy. You can even read it in a day, even though I would prefer you go through it like you would a normal devotional. And I don't really use big terms, so it's like simple English,
Right.
um, simple known Bible verses, and simple prayer points.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
it's not something, and the stuff you're supposed to reflect on or the activities you're supposed to do, they are not any far fetched. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's just the simple things that you need to help you on your journey. It's
All
not
right.
like a big book on some deep theology or some deep psychology or anything.
Exactly.
It's just,
Like,
yeah, something simple.
because I would imagine I wouldn't want to go through a whole lot of work to be able to take one step
Mm-hmm.
away from, the kind of shame. If I'm feeling any shame, I wouldn't want any giddy giddy book beer that will come and stress my,
Yeah,
something.
yeah,
Okay, so that's very good. All right. So how long did it take you? Because you mentioned you're a student pharmacist, right?
yeah.
Yes. So how long did it take you to complete this particular one?
This devotional.
Yes.
Well, I would say writing it was kind of the easiest part.
Oh.
Um, I've forgotten when exactly I got the idea to write, but I remember I was going through a friend's devotional, and she wrote a devotional about Christians with mental illness. So as I
Mhm.
went through a couple of times, I realized that I could also write something um, based on my experience, because sometimes you feel like you have to be an expert, or you have to reach a certain great height before you can help people. But then I think the truth is, whilst you're even figuring out life yourself, you can share the little that you've learned so far to help other people. So that was what inspired it. And then, so it was in my head for a while that, oh, okay, I'm going to write this devotional. I was a little skeptical, honestly, because I've not really shared my story with a lot of people. So it was like a really big step for me putting it out. Initially, I even wanted it to be anonymous, not to put my name on the book, so that I would just share my story. But then later, I decided to add my name, and so I would just plan, and maybe today I'll decide that okay, I'm going to write day one. So I first did the outline for the days and what I was going to write in every day, and then I did a little research in psychology, because um, there's a little medical information in there. And then I did a little Bible study to see how I can merge the two. I think what really took my time was the editing and making it into a book. But then writing the content was kind of the easy part. So I think in total it took me about 5 months to write and put it into a book.
Okay. Okay. You mentioned that writing it was easy.
Yeah.
But for me, I write as well. Um,
Oh, okay.
but sometimes I go through a phase, the whole thing that we call writer's block. Was there a time
Yeah.
during these 5 months where you felt, there's nothing that can go onto paper anymore? What should I continue? What should I write? How will I get through to another survivor?
Um. n- No, I didn't have any writer's block.
Mm-hmm.
Um. But I was during that time. I was on a little break from writing.
Mm-hmm.
I was going through a lot, so I decided to. I'm a blogger as well, so um, I manage my blogs. So I think during the COVID, there was a lot going on, so I decided to go on a break.
Mm-hmm.
So it's within that break that um, I wrote it, but I wasn't really in a hurry. I didn't initially. I didn't have a deadline that okay, I have to finish this by this time. It was just one of those things that okay, I'm going to write this, so let me just start putting things together. So it was when I got all the days on paper. Okay, I wrote it on my phone. So when I got all the things I wanted to write in on every day,
Mm-hmm.
that's when I gave myself a deadline that okay, by this time you're supposed to be done putting it in a PDF. By this time you're supposed to edit this part, you're supposed to design the cover page, you're supposed to do this. So
Okay.
initially I didn't really have a deadline, so there was not a lot of pressure on me to finish within the shortest possible time. Yeah.
Right. Was there anyone who you would go for advice when you're writing, or you did it all by yourself?
The writing bit, um, should I say I did it all by myself? Because I've learned a lot from a lot of people. But
Mm-hmm.
during the writing period, I didn't really consult anyone. It was more of the putting it into a book because this is my first ebook. So I got a lot of help from a friend,
Mm-hmm.
um, how to do the copywriting and some of the designs. Eh, So the writing itself, I did think almost all the work by myself. But the it's one thing writing something maybe for a blog. That one you could just copy and paste it. But
Yeah.
once it has to be a book, it has to reach a certain standard. And
Yeah.
since I've not done it before, I got help from a friend, and then I shared the initial book with a few good friends and
Mm-hmm.
got their feedback. So maybe some things that were not really clear, or even grammatical errors, and maybe a better way to write certain things that I had already written.
Right.
And
Right. Okay. So as all of this was going on, um, what were the difficulties you came across, if there were any?
I think the biggest, or should I say, the only difficulty was um, deciding to actually share my story because
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's quite a lot, not a lot of people know, as I said earlier. So putting it out there, yeah, literally, this is like the most personal thing I've written. So there were lots of times that I was like, maybe I shouldn't write this. Maybe I
Right.
should just, or I don't know, maybe I should make it anonymous. It
Mm,
was a struggle, yeah, because I wasn't sure whether I should share my story, because once you share your story, you also invite people to, even though it might not, it's not right, but I don't know, when you put yourself out there, people feel like they have
they're
the
entitled.
right to,
They're
to
entitled.
comment on anything, and I was scared that maybe someone might invalidate my story, or say I was lying, or I was exaggerating, or maybe people see me differently.
Mm-hmm. But
Yeah.
that's
So
these kind of thoughts are exactly what you are pushing to move out of, other survivors,
yeah, yeah,
right? So I think the decision to share was right, because basically other people have, as long as the story, the devotion is out there, then I guess whoever it is that's reading it will be helped somehow. So that's great.
yeah. That's my hope.
Thank you for sharing your story. All right. So now let's move on to away from this devotion for a bit, and let's move to your blogs. Okay. You
Okay.
told me you have two blogs. Now
Yeah.
tell us about these blogs. Give us the spice and the gist of the blogs.
Okay. So I started with one blog, and it was a Christian blog. So from poetry to maybe things I would learn from
Mm-hmm.
maybe a text or a passage I was reading, or
Mm-hmm.
anything Christian. But then I realized there's more that I want to share. I mean, there's nothing wrong with Christian literature, but I didn't want to limit myself to Christian literature, because there are other things about life that's not really necessarily Christian that I would still want to write about, and
Mm-hmm.
it wouldn't be appropriate to put it on a Christian blog. So I created a second blog for all other things non-Christian. So things from random stories. I have short stories on there. I have stories about poems about love. I have relationships. I have random life stuff, like maybe not giving up, or hope, or even pharmacy school, like very random things that are not Christian. So
Mm-hmm.
that's how come I have two blogs.
Okay, that's good. I also have a blog. I call it so but you didn't mention the names of your blogs.
Oh,
Maybe
yeah.
a listener
Okay,
would like to tune in.
sure. My Christian blog is called Those Beautiful Feet. It's on, both of them are on WordPress. So the title is from I've forgotten the verse, but it's somewhere in Romans. how lovely are the feet of those who bring the gospel of good news, something like that. Yeah, so that's where the title is from. And my non-Christian blog is Inked with Rini. So basically, it's just me writing.
Those beautiful feet and inked with renee. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what are your future goals? Now you're saying you're writing, you're studying pharmacy. Now you are being an author. So what exactly is Irene planning to do in the future?
In terms of writing or like general
Any
stuff.
general stuff, anything.
Oh,
Would you want to do a
well,
sequel to this devotional?
not maybe not a sequel, but you should definitely expect more devotionals from me.
Okay.
One thing about writing is um, when you're starting a new type of writing, I'm usually doing poetry and um, stories and maybe some articles. So, or maybe novels. I used to write novels some time ago. So, devotional is like a new territory. But after I wrote it, I started getting more ideas about other devotionals. So, you should definitely expect um, more devotionals from me and more books. I've always wanted to be an author, so don't be shocked if you see my name on books because I'm going to
Ooh.
write. Yeah.
Okay.
So
So that's great.
yeah, and for
May
formal,
it come true.
amen.
You so sorry, you're going to say something about pharmacy.
Yeah, for pharmacy, I'm almost done. I'm in my final year, so
That's
um,
great. That's great.
I'll see where that also takes me.
Okay. It's like we have a lot of things in common because my sister is also a pharmacist.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
That's nice.
Oh,
And is
all
she
right.
also a writer?
No, no, the writing there, leave it for me.
You.
All right. So are there any upcoming projects?
um, right now, no.
Okay.
I'm focusing on the book. It's still relatively new, so
Right. So we are doing the promotion. Okay, tell me why you chose to call it Out of the Silence.
okay. So it was a personal title because it took me so long to talk to anyone about it.
Mm-hmm.
More than 10 years. So it was like me coming out of the silence
Right.
and speaking up about the abuse that had happened in my life. And then
Okay.
one thing about speaking up is it's scary. It's very scary because you don't know exactly what the response is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, from the little I've learned, I've realized that when you speak up, you also give people the opportunity to realize that they are not alone.
Right.
Because one is just in their corner and they are silent. They all think that I'm alone in this. I'm the only unlucky person that this happened to. But once you talk about yours, people realize that okay, there's this other person, and maybe another person also says it. Then before you realize, a lot of people around you have the same experiences. And once you realize that this is a common thing, even though it's not normal, you realize that okay, then maybe it's not a personal flaw that caused this to happen. It's just something that is part of the evil in this world. So it's not me, it's not something personal. And then
Mm-hmm.
also with sexual abuse, speaking out might also mean demanding justice.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know how well the justice system works in Ghana for sexual abuse, especially when it has happened a long time ago and you don't really have proof. But someone might have a recent experience and
And
can
has
demand.
proof. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then it also helps because being the silence is like you are all alone and you deal with your thoughts alone. But when you speak to someone, they become less scary and you become less ashamed because
Mm-hmm.
now everything is out there. So there's nothing else to hide again. So whatever you
Exactly.
think people thought about you or whatever um was keeping you enclosed now it's out there. So you don't have to worry about it again. So that's why I chose the title for the book
That's
to be out.
brilliant. Brilliant. All right. So now I want you to just imagine that you're talking to one person who is a survivor and say
Mm.
something to that person.
Well, what I would say is deciding to even start a journey of healing is really difficult, and every step of the way, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, it's really difficult, from speaking it out and looking at the areas of your life that were affected and how you can reclaim some of the lost years to abuse is really difficult, but it's worth it. I'm not there yet, but um, if I look at my life from when I started opening up about my experience and when I didn't, I've realized that it's worth it. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's it's difficult. It's I don't know. It's going to take everything that you've every strength that you've ever had, but it's worth it because even though hurt comes from people, healing also comes from people. So
Exactly.
just being in community and having help and having some kind of support helps. So it's definitely worth it, but it's not easy. It's not easy at all. There are lots of days that you're going to feel like maybe I should just stay in my corner as I've been all these years. But there's there's another side to life, a much healthier and brighter and more enjoyable life than the one that you have right now. If you would just push yourself
And take a
towards,
step.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. So thank you so much for your initiative. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you so much for um, thinking about or putting it in mind that other people who need a little push or a little encouragement to step out of the silence. It's been wonderful having you on this show. Um,
Thank you for having me too.
you're always welcome to come back if there's another project or something interesting from any one of your two blogs that you'd want to share. Ayirebuah
Sure.
Speaks literally is a show that welcomes all topics. So once again, thank you, Irene, for joining us. Out of the Silence. This was Out of the Silence, an episode about stepping out of any kind of shame after being sexually abused. Any person who's listening to this who feels like it has spoken to them can go ahead. How do people get uh, your book? How do they uh, access your book?
Okay, so my book is available at nakwama.com.
Okay, can you spell that for the listeners?
Um, Nakwama, NAAKWAAMAH
All
dot
right.
com. Yeah.
All
So
right.
when you go to the website, you just um go to where the resources are, and you would find it.
Okay, so that's it, guys. You just go on to nakwama.com if you want to check Out of the Silence devotional by Irene Afriyie Boafo. So this has been a wonderful show. I have been your host, Ayirebuah, and we'll catch you again next time on an episode of Ayirebuah Speaks Literally. So thank you all. Thank you, Irene, and
Welcome.
we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.